Good day, ladies and germs. This is your ticker guy coming at you from wonderful Niceville. I'm going to dig further into this corruption and impeachment thing. I don't know if you're getting tired of it yet, but apparently not, because people keep watching the podcast or listening to it anyway. I guess that's one of the nice things about podcasts. You can listen to it. You don't need to be able to watch video. So it works in your car, it works if you're running or working out or whatever you're doing. All right, let's talk about this thing in some more depth, because we need to put some timelines on this, and we need to put some background on it. People seem to not remember. Gee, I wonder if you're smoking all that ganja that's legal in certain states, right? Well, just make sure it isn't a vape, because it might be laced with cyanide. Speaking of which, I'm going to take 1 minute and talk about that. All right, just 1 minute. Why is it that it took a news organization to take some of these THC oil cartridges and have them run through an analysis and find that there is a fungicide in there which is on the banned list in every state that has legal marijuana? And the reason it's on the banned list is because when it is heated, it decomposes into hydrochloric acid and cyanide. Now, maybe you think that inhaling pool acid and cyanide is a good idea. Personally, I think it will make you dead. But the CDC hasn't come out and hasn't traced any of this. And oh, by the way, it happens to be a fungicide that is very popular when used on vineyards. Where are there a lot of grapes? Where are vineyards found in the United States? What you're telling me that we can't start going into those places and sampling those plants and seeing whether or not there's any of this resin? Come on, guys. This problem is being intentionally not run down. All right. End of my 1 minute on that for today. We'll circle back on that one, because there's corruption here too. Hunter Biden, as we know, had a board seat on Burisma, Ukrainian natural gas firm, for which he was uniquely unqualified. In fact, Hunter Biden's highest and best qualification appears to have been getting kicked out of the military service because he tested positive for cocaine. If you remember, it was not all that long ago. And by the way, this doesn't appear to have been a one-time thing. I mean, there's plenty of young people that use drugs when they're younger and then stop. All right, some of them use hard drugs and then stop. But an awful lot of people don't stop. And if you remember, it wasn't that long ago, in fact, it was quite recently, that Hunter Biden returned a rental car that happened to have what had a crack pipe in it, essentially, along with his wallet and his, so it was very clearly his crack pipe, of course. Oh, no, those were not my drugs. And a white powdery substance. Gee, I wonder what was being put in the crack pipe. The pipe had been used, according to reports. There was no prosecution. Now, they didn't actually catch him with it in his possession. It was in the vehicle that was rented to him, that was turned back in, and there was all sorts of credentials in there. There was a big news story about this. Not one thing was done about it. You want to bet what the odds are that you'd get away with that? If you ordinary human, did something like that, you'd probably have been arrested, prosecuted, thrown in jail. That'd be the end of that. Okay, back to Burisma. There is a report circulating that Mitt Romney says that there's 30 senators that privately would vote to impeach President Trump. I wonder if that's because Mitt Romney has a former inner circle person, top advisor to his failed 2012 presidential campaign, his national security advisor, in fact, and a career CIA spook who also sits on the board of Burisma. Isn't that an odd coincidence? Isn't that an odd coincidence? This guy, it's CIA, folks, director of the National Counterterrorism Center for a few years. And yet, who came after this guy as the director of the National Counterterrorism Center? That'd be John Brennan. And in 2017, 5 years after failed Mittens' bid, guess what? He joined the board of directors of Burisma 6 months after Hunter Biden left. I wonder what's going on here. Why do we have all these people within government administration positions of one form or another sitting on the board of a natural gas company in the Ukraine? What services are they offering to the board of the natural gas company in Ukraine? Exactly what do they bring to the table beyond political interference and access in the United States? And exactly why isn't that corrupt as hell? And oh, by the way, this guy who used to work for Mittens, as far as I know, is still on the board. And a former CIA spook, a very high-level spook. In fact, a very high-level spook during the period of time that 9/11 happened. Right. So, one of the people that was supposed to stop it, because, that's what counterterrorism's about. He didn't do that. He didn't do such a good job at that, did he? So if you were hiring people on their counterterrorism prowess as a natural gas concern, you probably wouldn't hire the guy that fucked up and let 3,000 people get murdered. But if you're hiring him because he might have some inside pull with people within the national security apparatus and the federal government inside the United States, now that is a good reason to put this guy on the board. And it would be damned inconvenient if Donald Trump was to discover this, blow it out into the open, and put it in the public record. Now we know why everybody's all pissed off. And by the way, Mittens is a Republican, right? So you think this is one side of the aisle or the other? I don't think so. I would love to take another 10, 15 minutes and tie this into why this sort of corruption goes on all the time within our government. And the answer to it, which I'm going to leave for the next podcast or maybe a couple down, depending on the events of the day here, is this. It's you. It's you. Read the ticker from this morning. And then sit back in your chair and contemplate all this little small ball stuff that's going on here in foreign policy. It really is, in terms of dollars and cents and all that. It's small ball. $600,000 is not a lot of money. Now when there's $3 trillion being ripped off from you, not other people, not faceless people, not in foreign trade, whatever, $3 trillion a year stolen from you, the American citizen. And there is not a damn thing that you do about it. Not a thing. And all we hear is, well, we got to vote for the other guy. We got to vote for this. We got to vote for that. It's done such a great job so far, hasn't it? We were told that it was going to drop. The amount of money that was going to be spent on this stuff was going to come down dramatically after Barack Obama got his policies in place. And what happened? It went up dramatically. It didn't go down at all. But if you want to know why people like Mitt Romney, people like Joe Biden, Hunter Biden twice, okay, not just Ukraine with Burisma, but also China. There isn't anything wrong there, right? I mean, look at the Chinese trade situation. There's no problem there having him run $1 billion of money out of a Chinese outfit, and flying on Air Force Two with his father, while his dad is a the vice president of the United States. He flies over there, and months later? I think it was months later. He suddenly magically somehow manages to get $1 billion of their money to run with exactly what skill set. And by the way, where's the transcripts of those conversations? Why was he on that plane? Why was he legally entitled to be on that plane? That's paid for by taxpayer money. What was the quid pro quo there? Nobody wants to talk about that either. But anyone that thinks that this is purely a matter of the Democrats has rocks in their head. And I point directly at Mitt Romney. You think that Trump really wants to drain this swamp? Nah, he doesn't. He would like to make sure that he gets his piece of it, I'm sure. I mean, after all, what other possible reason would he have to go into American politics and become president of the United States? It's a great grift machine, isn't it? all the way up and down the line. It's one of the best grift machines in the world. And what do you got to be good at in order to succeed in New York real estate? Not just be good at putting up buildings. I will tell you that right now. So, folks, I am no fan of President Trump. I certainly didn't want President Pantsuit either. But I will tell you this. If you think that Trump is going to root out all the corruption over there with the Ukraine and everything else, you're nuts. He's not. But if you think impeaching him over going after a small piece of the corruption is appropriate, then you ought to be storming the Capitol right now. Because both sides of the aisle are equally guilty in this and have been for a very, very long time. And we'll get into some more of that too. But for right now, that's what I'm going to leave you with. This is not a partisan issue, but everyone thinks it is. But where it starts, the fundamental flaw in everyone's logic on this is it isn't the corruption in the government that, they do this thing with Burisma or whatever have you. That's not where it comes from. The reason they get away with it, the reason they are very sure they'll get away with it, is because they have gotten away with stealing $3 trillion from you, $25 per person per day for every man, woman, and child in this country for a couple of decades, and you haven't done a damn thing about it. I'm your ticker guy, and that's my view.